Alrighty, folks. I've learned not to talk too soon after it says going live because it seems like sometimes it cuts out the first few seconds. I wanted to do this one. I think I got the microphone thing worked out. It wasn't like it stopped us from talking last time, but I wanted to be able to use my headset mic and not the webcam. Also, last time we were, just kind of chilling, and my internet decided to go. It wasn't a big deal on my end. It only went down for like 3, 4 minutes, but it was enough to completely destroy the live stream. So I apologize for that. But those of you who have internet, which is all of you, understand the situation. Sometimes internet just does that. So I wanted to also pick back up there. And finally, I wanted to basically do this now because I'm not sure what my schedule next week's going to look like, if I'll be available next Thursday. Getting awfully close to Christmas. And I actually might have to go down to the cabin land because we were down there a couple of weeks ago, and that's actually where J-Ro and I filmed a little bit of shooting footage with the PDP and a couple other guns, and they had dug the foundation holes and stuff and whatnot, and we're doing the concrete for the feet. But talked to the builder today. He's got the base frame thing put up. Sorry, I don't know the terms, the joists and all that, and he said he should be putting in basically the preliminary floor, the basic floor, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then he wants me to come out so we can do a virtual walkthrough, walking around the basically square of wood out there, and I can show exactly where I want windows, doors, that kind of thing, because not like I can just look at blueprints with him. We're having to get a little innovative because, yeah, I can't see, blind. And this could be an interesting cabin. It's the one that I built to my specs. I've joked with people that one way I'm saving a good bit of money is just not having lights installed. I said I'll just have a basket near the front door. You know how a lot of people have baskets with shoes in them, slippers to put on? I'm going to have basically headlamps. So you can just grab your headlamp. I mean, what the hell do I need with lights? I mean, I guess we need them for videos, but and they, yes, before anyone asks, it's supposed to be black. Because even if I were to flip the little lid up on the webcam, you're just going to see a black room, maybe a cat's eye staring at you. So that's last time someone said that was kind of creepy. So that all in mind. On Patreon, did a poll in the fall asking if people wanted the next big ridiculous deep dive video to be on the AR-10, AR-15, and 4 family, or the FN FAL L1A1, for that matter, FN49 family. And overwhelmingly, people voted for the FAL. Now, I was hoping to do that video sooner, but I was waiting on a couple of guns that friends said, "Oh, you're doing this? Hey, you want to borrow this gun for the video?" So, yeah. But we're getting at the end of the year, and I went ahead and recorded what I could for it. But then I realized, okay, the video is going to be long. It's kind of intended going through FALs. But there are specific questions that Patreons have asked, people have asked me over email, people asked me by Gunbroker, and even a few of you asked me on a live stream or two ago. And I thought if I incorporated those into the big video, they'd kind of get lost in the noise. So I thought a little companion video, hopefully much shorter, let's say, 25, 30 minutes, depending how many questions we have. I'll try to answer specific FAL questions in that video. And of course, I can answer them here tonight if I know the answer. And if not, I'll just say, I don't know, but I'll research it. So that was the whole point of tonight, aside from just kind of saying an early Merry Christmas to all you. Also, get any FAL L1A1 questions? Ask me any of them. Ask me anything. And worst I can say is, I don't know, but maybe I know. And if so, it'll be told tonight and it'll be incorporated into a video going forward because I do really enjoy the FNFAL. In fact, it was really what I got into before I got into AKs. But yeah, we can talk about that. And I'd love to hear your own FNFAL stories tonight. If you own one, built one, because unlike a lot of guns, you can really build one in your garage. No welding is required, really no riveting, especially if you already get a receiver with a semi-automatic ejector block in it. Everything else is just screws and stuff. So yeah, with some files and some hammers and some patience, you can pretty much literally bang together an FAL in your garage, which I did for my first two or three. It's like a decent reason and a little bit of extra material for a video. Why not? Been working today on that, finishing up the video and also doing laundry, and I like a change of pace. And as I said a minute ago, also I think I got the headset issue worked out. So there, I'm gonna hop into the chat and see what we got going. Again, sorry for the short notice. I was hoping to give at least an hour's notice before going live, but it's a Saturday. Need I say more? First thing I see is from Jay Weatherford, and it's about PSA and a dog leg mount for an M92. Should this come as any surprise? I have no idea. I don't do a lot with PSA, and that's not to say I think they're necessarily bad. I think we've gone over that, but I don't know. That's kind of the danger you always run about U.S. gun or foreign gun versus U.S. part or foreign part. Try to make them gel together. And then Jay says, "Enjoy the show." Hey, Observer. Yeah, happy holidays to you. Around here, it's Festivus. I hope I'm not so old that most of you don't get that joke. By the way, Fox and I have already recorded a holiday special. Yeah, Observer. I think you said last time it was a 2004 Wasser. That tracks. Yeah, that would have been right before the end of the assault weapons ban. The M70 has nothing to do with the FAL, so yeah, I know you're joking, but yeah. Who makes the most dependable new production FAL? We gotta say DSA because they're the only ones making one today. Because you just say new production, so really DSA is it. I know that sounds weird, but yeah. Hey, lava, if you prefer. Oh, okay. Well, you said PSA. Mm-hmm. So which M92 are you talking about? From Zastava directly or Arsenal? Dominic, that whole Zastava soft receiver thing has literally been bounced around for 10 years. And I've done videos refuting it. And the truth is, no. I mean, are there one or two duds out there? Sure, sure. But consider Zastava has exported well over 100,000 semi-automatic guns to the USA. A couple lemons are to be expected. Like last time we talked about some bad Wassers. That doesn't mean all Wassers are bad. But for every one Zastava that may have some issues, there are hundreds out there running fine. And more importantly, there aren't videos left and right on YouTube of these things blowing up. Again, not saying there isn't one or two before anyone does that, but that would be the true definition of exception, not the rule. Personally, I've never had issues with mine. Mine's a pretty early M92. I've got an M70B1. A friend has an original M70 from 2012. I've had two NPAP DFs, no issues. Hey, Lucky. Yeah, any FAL questions, lay them on me. The best old production FAL. See, these questions are very subjective, so I don't know. What are you kind of going for? I've said many times I really like the Argentine guns a lot. I like the history of the British L1A1. The highest quality production was probably the Steyr STG 58. They just really put attention to detail. But of course, there was never an official Steyr semi-auto over here, so they're all parts builds. And of course, when you do a parts build, a lot comes down to the quality of the builder and the receiver used. Hey, Scott. 1985 combat. I mean, unless you say like out on planes, long distance, really the 5.56 guns, because by 1985 you've got highly mechanized infantry or air cav, so something smaller, lighter, and the benefit there is you can take a lot of ammo with you. I don't know why I'm saying this. Just take it for what it is. There's a lot of good guns in this period, but I've always loved the Daewoo K2. That I give you kind of an off the wall answer. I think it was a really good gun. Is it the best ever? If I'm being honest, probably not, but I do like it better than the FNC, for example. And I think compared to the AR of the day, yeah, there were some carbines, but there aren't many 1 in 7 twist carbines in 1985. So I don't know. The Daewoo K2 is one of the newest guns out because that's right as it was coming out, for that matter. Also tempted to say the Steyr AUG. The AUG. Sure, Dominic. Improving the trigger pull on an FAL. Honestly, it's never bugged me. The thing is, yeah, it's a little spongy and it's heavy, but the reason it's heavy is for very good positive ignition of any ammo type. You go lightening the trigger pull, you're lightening the force that the hammer whaps the bolt with, and that can lead to issues. Honestly, I'd say get out there and enjoy it more, shoot it. Obviously, the more you do pull the trigger on any gun, it does smooth out a bit. Okay, Lucky, when you say Springfield FAL, do you mean an SAR 48 or an SAR 4800? Hey, Jimmy Beans. Yeah, the imbells would most of the time be Springfield, but there were some imbells imported by Century. Hey, Montenegro. Hello. Well, to be fair, Jay, to be fair with the C-39 V2 AKs that came out of Korea, the final work was done here in America, and I'm sure they made those forgings to Century Arms spec. I don't know. Yeah, I've got a couple of the red dots on my guns. Hey, MDT. I'll look into the Malaysian contracts. I know that some were sent over to them. They weren't. They weren't in large numbers. One interesting variant that Australia did was the L1A1 F1. I don't know if yours is one of that style, but they're kind of neat. But yeah, Australia was kind of providing L1A1s to the Pacific area. New Zealand obviously got all theirs from them too. Yeah, I'll look into that when I do the video just to give exact numbers if I can. Not off the top of my head, I don't remember, except that yeah, Malaysia did buy some. Um, El Gringo, the thing about the HK33, it was, I don't know, it never was really fully mature. For one thing, it having its own, which was a little odd. No last round bolt hold open automatically anyway. I'm not saying the HK33 was bad, but mm, mm. Plus your scope mounting options at that time were a little limited. Montenegro, yeah, I've shot the MBell 223. Well, the SAR 4800s we had here, which were kind of the early pattern, not like the Model twos or threes. They're more like the Model ones. Very soft shooting because obviously it's a very big gun for that cartridge. Took AR mags, a little bit of a clutch together deal, but it worked. Um, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I owned one briefly before letting a friend have it when I was leaving the country. I'd like to get it back from him one of these days. Trying to think. That might be the only 5.56 223 factory AK we ever, or excuse me, FAL. You're just so used to talking AKs that we had imported here. Someone's coming off the top of my head, but I could very well be wrong. There might have been some small batches of others, and I know gunsmiths have done some. Yeah, Freedom Group, 870s. I mean, yeah, Remingtons. Oh, Remingtons are fine. I don't know. I think people don't realize just how early on Freedom Group really took over. I think it was what 2006, 2007. It was quite a time before. The Dutch actually had their own FAL pattern. If memory serves, it was a metal handguard with bipod, pretty similar to everything else, kind of from that era. Kind of the evolved Canadian pattern. But yeah, the Dutch had their own. It's kind of funny is the Dutch used just about everything. They had AR-10s, they had G3s, they had FALs. They actually wanted to go with the AR-10, but it didn't work out. Yeah, the Springfield SAR 4800 is a great gun. I mean, it's a post fan, but that's no sneeze. I mean, they were easy to put back to rights. They didn't do too much to neuter them. You say Rimling sucked, but I think you mean Remington sucked, right? I don't know. I'm not much of a Remington person. They're fine, but I'm a Mossberg person. Look back at our channel. I don't know. Mossberg has always worked for me. Different strokes, though, right? Uh, no, that was not the name of the guy who invented the Galil. Yeah, what can I say? Mossbergs have never let me down. None. Yeah, I remember when they were doing those 590A1s with the little included bayonet. They were cool. The only thing that kit was missing was the heat shield. For so long, Mossberg did not want to ship a 590A1 with a heat shield. They do the 590 and the 500. Eventually, they did those retro grades with the heat shield. But yeah, Jay, I think you're right. I think it's a generational thing. The boomers and even before them, they had good reason to be loyal to Remington. But most of those guys bought Remingtons in the 50s, 60s, 70s. For kind of Generation X and millennials, it just seems like Mossberg has kind of stepped it up. And they've also been just such a good value. And they've kept the US made thing. Now, of course, the Mavericks were made in Mexico, but hey, that's at least North American, right? But you know, the 500s, 590s are still made in the US. That's pretty cool. Yeah, Montenegro, the MB2. Yeah, well, yeah, like I said, the ones we got were basically civilianized MD1s, and they were solid as all get out. Of course, they were basically just a late pattern MBEL FAL, but hey, hey, Colt, I'm good. It's a good day, I guess. I'm assuming the microphone's sounding okay. Like I said, I think I worked that out. Yeah, me, if you buy 500, I I don't meet many unhappy Mossberg owners. Now, keep in mind they're tools. They're not meant to look pretty. Sometimes they feel a little rattly, but my God, do they work? So if you're just wanting a workaday shotgun, not necessarily a pretty one, but also one that will survive a long time, I highly recommend a Mossberg. By the way, it's time for me to plug super chats. I gotta justify why I'm holed up in my office room to my wife. So if anyone wants to toss anything in with a question, much obliged. But if not, that's cool too. Fox has had to be out of town for like work the last 3 weekends. He's in sales, and this year they dropped off a lot. So his company is really hustling to try to make what they can make on sales. You know how it goes. Even when I was down shooting a couple of weeks ago, like his phone just would not stop. We barely had time to get shooting in just because the phone just was blowing up. I get it. It's just that time right now for everyone. Oh, Jimmy, yeah, I really like the Tang safety. It's good for offhand, it's good for lefties. To me, it's just more natural. And as I pointed out in that recent Mossberg video, when the way the Remington controls are laid out, your hands are really near your trigger. Your safety is right behind it. Your slide release is right in front of it. I like that on a Mossberg, you can keep your hands really far away from the trigger. I just like that. Honestly, observer, observer, yeah, observer. I I like the 20. The thing is, you lose two shells for just really 1.5 inches, because an 18 is actually an 18.5. 20 is actually a 20. So there's only about a 1.5 inch difference. And you go from, you basically have a two shell shorter gas, excuse me, you know what I mean, mag tube in the 18. Plus, no bayonet lug. I know that's a small, stupid thing. But to be fair, if you don't use the bayonet lug on a 590A1, you can use it to mount stuff. There are mount adapters for it. So you could always put a small pick rail there. So I think the 18 is the way to go. I was assuming the 20 is the way to go over the 18. Thanks, Sean. John, yeah, I would think PTR is good. I mean, kind of like anything else, you can always find the person online that's got a dud, got a lemon. But kind of like DSA, PTR got a lot of their tooling and stuff from a former licensed producer, and they've done a lot of cool models over the years, and they've kept the prices low. No, I like the PTR, I really do. Yeah, I really liked it when PTR did the PTR 91 GI. Part of it was you had that military profile barrel, and it had more of a workaday finish on it, and it came with original military furniture, and the price was really good. Jay, I can't really tell you if an FAL is worth it. I think a lot of it's just personal taste. The FAL is, it's just a thing you either get or you don't. It's one of the last guns made in the classic way, if that makes any sense. There's really no stamped metal on it outside of like the hand guards and top cover. A lot of them had wood. Yeah, it just has that classic feel. It's not knocking newer guns, but well, they're different. I don't know. One thing I will say about the FAL, it's very flexible on ammo because of the adjustable gas system. Yeah, Observer, I've always owned a 20. Nothing against the 18. J-Rose still has one that he got off of me over 10 years ago. But I just think the 20 isn't that much longer, and it gives you several more features. Hey, Lucky, or Lucky Ducky. Well, I mean, there were the paratroopers and the Congos. Originally, the 50.62 was an 18-inch barrel gun, and then because of feedback from Belgian paratroopers, they went to the 50.63, which is like a 17.3, 17.4-inch barrel. It's kind of an odd number, but yeah, that's about as short as FN ever went. They never shortened the gas system. The paratrooper guns worked fine with the standard gas. Of course, DSA has done a carbine gas system. We did a video one back in the summer of one of the carbine length DSAs, and they do those in 16 inches or even 13 inches or even 11 inches. as an SBR, and they've even done a few pistols. So that's an option. So DSA's done some shorties, but most everyone else, yeah, they just stuck with the standard length gas system and handguard. But short barrels were made by several companies, usually not in huge numbers. But for example, Bell did some as the Bush rifle, Bush carbine, and there was, of course, the bitch gun from Vietnam that the Australians did. That was definitely a kind of a cobbled together thing in the field, but interesting. Scott on the 17M? No, I don't think so. I think it's a particular spec from the feds. Hey Jared, yeah, that'd be cool if PTR anything coming back right now would be cool. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Jay. I appreciate it. I gotta earn my keep on here to tell my wife why I do these live streams. Yeah, Jimmy, you're not wrong on the FAL. I like it. I really do. But I also like the original Mil Kalashnikov. I even like the M14. But they are aging guns, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine that a gun made originally in 1947, that's when the first prototypes of the FAL came out, isn't necessarily up to scratch in 2023, soon to be 2024. It'd actually be more sad if it was, because that means we haven't progressed. The AR-10, what's funny is if you look at the original Armalite AR-10 and then today's AR-10s, they're not really the same at all either. The AR-10 of today is basically just a scaled up AR-15, whereas the original AR-10 was a different gun. The buffer system, the bolt system, especially the trigger group, very, very different. Jay, when you say the CZ Scorpion mirror sight, I assume you mean kind of the from the side, the little triangular looking sight, the one that doesn't fold but has a little flip apertures. Is that the one you mean? The one that has like kind of the ribbing on it? Yeah, pretty much anything with the name Tanker, is a chop down. I remember someone I knew in the past was really excited. I got this new Tanker M1 Grand, and I had to explain to him that that wasn't a real thing. I mean, if you have one and like it, awesome. Just know that it's not a M1 Grand that was used by military. Hey Jimmy, yeah, my M92 is just classic. I put on it under folding stock, even as a Stava one. That to me is just the look the M92 needs to have. But personals, and of course the guns are cheap enough. The M92s, we can send them up however we want. Hey Sean, so you have an FN made 5000 that with kind of the long bird cage, the T48 style. Yeah, most of the original imports came in like that with that flash hider. And yeah, they did bring over some 5063s, but they were always more expensive than the 5000s. Yeah, Jimmy, I'm not necessarily one that can speak too much when it comes to sights, but it's cool that people get to have these guns and customize them and make them their own. Honestly, Jay, for that Scorpion Ear sight, I'd look around in forums and stuff. I mean, people pull those off all the time. I know Fox pulled the one off his because they always put scopes and other sights on there. So there's got to be a lot of people that just yanked them off. Funny is they put that rear sight on they put it on the CZ 805 Bren pistol. You're thinking, I don't have my Bren pistol anymore. I sold it a long time ago. I don't know if I sold it with those sights. I don't think I have a set around here. I'm sitting here thinking that. I don't know. But yeah, a lot of people just pull those off. So you should be able to find them secondhand, offer someone a good trade for something. And they'd be happy to do it because we're in that era where people don't really like iron sights. B, I see we have message retracted. If there's anything I can help you with, let me know. Montenegro, I'm not sure what you mean by modifying AK 74 74Ms for a crank gas tube. You mean shortening them down? I mean, if you shorten down the gun to crank length, then it's effectively a crank. When they did the AK 105, going to the longer gas system was actually an improvement. And you get better handguard, you get a little bit better dwell time, better velocity, less rapid fire, thus less overheating. I don't know why you would do that. I mean, I guess the only benefit is the crank gas tube kind of comes up, but then you'd have to have whole new rear sight, whole new. That just sounds strange to me. So my opinion is, sounds strange. Observer, what issue did you see with the mini or micro? I've always thought the micro was just ridiculous. Even the mini is just a flamethrower, but the micro is just, I don't know. I haven't had a full size Draco in a while, so I can't really speak to their quality now. The M92s seem consistent, and they are a little bit shorter than a Draco full size. So I'll be honest, the Draco full size has a 12.4 inch ish barrel. Honestly, at that point, I'd just put an extended brake on it and make it a carbine, which is exactly what I did with mine. Uh, at least the M92, you've lost 6 inches a barrel. It's a little more compact, still a military grade gun. And it's more of a crank, and you do get a longer sight radius with the M92. So, yeah. I agree with you, Jimmy. It's well, Lucky, you're not wrong because a lot of users, Britain and Australia most famously, but also even like Israel, limited their standard infantry FALs to just safe and select, semi-auto only repetition. It was not terribly controllable, especially the non-bipod version. Full auto, kind of just a waste of ammo, especially with the 20 round mag. But of course, there were some LMG variants, the Australian L2A1, the Argentinian FAP. I love that name, FAP. So there were those, but typically they were set up as squad automatic guns with the standard infantry ground pounders having some auto. Even if they had the full auto option, they typically were instructed by their sergeants to not ever use it because you're going to go through your relatively small supply of ammo pretty quick on that. On the other hand, the British kind of lamented not having slight fire on their L1A1s. In fact, they picked up some Argentine guns during the Falklands and wanted them for their full auto. So, yeah, what the hell do I know, I guess. Jared, no real comment on the round. I don't know anything about it. El Gringo, why is the magwell asymmetrical? Because they're being stylish. No, it actually is good. It's kind of a guide. If you go to load it, the idea was you would load it coming from the left with your left hand, and that way you could kind of. It's not a beveled magwell, but the idea was, it gives a guide. You wouldn't over insert, and it also gives a little bit of kind of just stability and protection for the mag on the right side. I always thought it looked kind of cool. Yeah, Alexis, I have seen 22 FAL conversions, typically on those stupid uh, aluminum alloy Williams receivers, also known as the hand grenade. I did mention that when I was recording the big FAL video in passing. Yeah, the idea was not successful, so a lot of people repurposed those from being 308, where it was truly dangerous, into 22 9 millimeter. I've seen some 45s that take grease gun mags, and in those calibers, they're fine. Yeah, sorry, Jay. I'm thinking about your question about a M92. You are right. A Scorpion sight would look good on a M92. I don't know if it would line up right, but for peeps, I don't know how much that really matters. Calibrations may be off, but it'd look good on one, that's for sure. Gen XJ, uh, man, I don't pay attention to Congress anymore. Seems like to me they're less interested in doing their freaking jobs and they're more interested in getting on MSNBC or Fox to get their 5 minute blurb it, or they all get on YouTube and Facebook now. It's like, come on, guys, dude, just compromise and get together and keep this nation running. Because, yeah, that said, I actually do find the UFO stuff quite fascinating. I talk about it on my personal channel, just Misha, and I've done a couple of what I call black boxes, which are basically like this, just talking. But I find the UFO thing an interesting topic of conversation, even if you can say, well, nothing's real or everything's real, it doesn't matter. I think it's an interesting mental exercise, if that makes sense. Hey, Matt. Hello. Hey, Ben Cotton. I've had that happen too. Uh, they're absolutely legal because the lower is not the receiver, the upper is the receiver. So having a selector switch on the lower absolutely doesn't matter. You don't even actually have to modify the FAL trigger group to make it a semi-auto only, because without the auto sear, i.e. out of battery safety in the upper, putting it on full auto does nothing. You basically just get hammer follow and one shot goes off. It's perfectly fine, perfectly legal. Even Springfield did it back in the 80s. Century Arms did it, so no problems. But I know exactly what you're saying. I had one dealer absolutely freak out on a poor customer of mine years ago, about 10 years ago. Guy bought a Israeli heavy barrel kit on an M-Bell receiver. And he said that his dealer said he knew FALs really well. So, you got the Israeli Hebrew Bark 3-position lower, M-Bell, type 3 upper, no big deal. Sent it to the dealer. The dealer freaked the hell out, said he never heard of such a receiver, M-Bell, mind you. Yeah, this guy knows FALs, right? Okay, that's what yeah. And not only did he get upset about it, he called the ATF, confiscate the gun, haul it all the way over to West Virginia, They had it at Tech Branch for 6 months, back to the dealer, told him to transfer it to the customer and never call them again, damn it. Basically, he wasted everyone's time, not to mention the poor customer. I felt horrible. But I mean, it was literally approved by the ATF even after a dealer called them on it. And look, if I get a gun in that's clearly not right, okay, that's one thing. But I also take the attitude that I'm not the police. Dealers aren't the police. If someone passes a background check, I'm more concerned about the person. If the person's shady, looks like they're on drugs, has a criminal record, okay. But if they're clean, question about the gun, I might call the manufacturer if I don't know. They say it's good. I'm going to take them at their word on it because why would we call the ATF? That's just dumb. But yeah, you're not the only one. Matt, I've got an Israeli heavy barrel SAR 48. It's been a great gun. I got it many years ago. My light barrel is one of the Stuchner brother, the SBLs that Arms Corps did. But you don't see many of the SBL receiver heavy barrels. So I thought, well, it's still a pre-ban. So I got the Springfield. They did a good job back then. The M1As they assembled were good. The BM59s they put together were well done. In fact, I've said in videos I prefer them over the BM62s and BM69s. Came directly from Italy because they're kind of sported. But the ones that Springfield put together were full featured in the BM59s, and they did the same with the Israeli. They had to modify a bit to get the Israeli barrel to fit the M-Bell receiver, but other than that, they're straight. There's no U.S. parts, and of course they used parts, so quality can vary a little bit there. Thank you very much, Sean. Excuse me. Thank you much, Sean. I'm running out of breath here. Do you have any questions? And yes, the FN49 I went ahead and integrated into the FAL video because you really can't talk about one without talking about the other. I just have my two, my Argentine and my Egyptian, but my very first one was a Venezuelan in 7 mil, and I did shoot it, and it was great. The only reason I sold it is I needed to raise capital to start my business, Ozark Bear Arms. This was back in 2009, and I had to sell guns. That's just what it was, and I don't regret it because selling that gun then started my livelihood. And it wasn't the only gun I sold, but it was just one. I think I sold it because even though I really love the gun, I don't really have a Venezuelan collection, and I knew I'd get something that fit my collection a little better. And sure enough, years later, I got the couple I have now. I've also had a couple of the Luxembourgian guns. I don't now, not because they're bad, but because people just started paying crazy money for those 30-06 FN49s. And man, at some point, you go, here, have it, it's yours. They keep pulling out $100 bills. And, I love guns, but there's other things in life too. I would never get rid of every one of my FN49s, but I went from like having 4 to 2. Oh, Montenegro, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. I was an ESL teacher for years, so no worries there. And keep in mind, I'm blind, so I'm using a text to speech, so it makes everything sound strange. You're very welcome here. Hey, Chris. I just took a bit off time doing laundry and recording videos to share with you guys. Plus, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to pop in here later on this week. I might have to run down to the cabin land to walk through. The builder's making some good progress there and got the floor in and wants me to approve some changes and do all this. It's a little difficult for both of us because I can't just look at a blueprint and go, yeah, that's what I want. So he's going to physically show me a few things. So that'll probably be where I'm at Thursday, Friday. And Merry Christmas to you too. Hey, Jordan. Yeah, any questions you have, Jordan, or if you'd like to throw in a super chat, you gotta plug those occasionally. Honestly, I hate doing that, but the truth is, yeah, YouTube channels are not free. But yeah, if you got any questions, Jordan, lay 'em on me. Yeah, the mini observer, the mini on the gas tube on the mini and micro is pretty cobbled together, so that doesn't shock me. That doesn't shock me. You heading out, Jimmy Beans? Glotru? That's how my speech says your name, so apologies. I do appreciate it though. Again, my TTS is weird, but I appreciate the shekels. Oh man, I'd be too poor for an FAL today too. It is crazy that the modern FAL prices. I got into them because they were very affordable, especially if you built your own. You could build one. J Ro's father tried to see how cheap he could build one. And it was like $250. He bought the receiver, he bought the parts, and just threw them together. And even nice ones you could build for well under 500, 450 or so. Even then, like SAR 48s were around 1,000. Argentines about the same. Even FN guns. I was on the FAL files looking at archives, and they were still 2 grand or less. Even as recently as like 2009, 2010. Yeah, modern prices. That's why you don't see as many new FALs anymore. I just can't. I feel fortunate to have hopped into them when I did, but yeah, Weatherford, I'll let you know if I hear of anyone with a spare Scorpion sight. Like I said, I know a lot of guys pulled those off. The problem is probably figuring out where they put them, in drawers and things. And really, if you found someone who had a 805 pistol, that'd be the guy to ask because those are not the right sights for a Bren pistol. I pulled mine off immediately and put on the more correct flip sights. Yep, Ben, he did get the gun back. It took half a year. I can almost promise you he never went back to that dealer. I don't know why Arsenal does what they do vis-a-vis the Arm 9 furniture, man. It sells well. I get why they don't just like always have it in stock. It's a very special thing. You think they just have a routine import batch? I have no idea. Talked to Arsenal. They called me just a couple of days ago. And it's really funny every time they call me as a dealer. They're like, "Well, do you need anything? Can we sell you?" Great, yeah. What do you got to sell me? And then they have nothing. It's just like, I mean, they have nothing. They wanted to sell me some weird uh, gold and silver plated Sam 7K commemorative edition for something another in a Pelican case. And it's like, guys, I just don't do that. And I don't get a lot of customers wanting my customers and myself, we're shooters. I mean, yeah, collecting's fun, but if I'm going to collect, I just want a regular as issue gun. I don't need all this special stuff. And that's usually what I run into. AK guys aren't much into gold and silver plating, unless your name is Hussein. Saddam Hussein definitely had some gold plated guns. I think he had gold plated toilets too. Hey Scott, which SAR 48 do you have? Is it just the standard 21-inch barrel, or do you have different ones? Because they did some folding stocks. They did an 18-inch Bush rifle or Bush carbine. Yeah, there were a few variations. And yeah, the M-Bells are great. I've owned several over the years. I'd like to get another one. It's just, how it goes. Mitchell, I don't know, FAL parts kits. I'm not saying you're wrong. Back when the kits were all coming in new, you knew what they were. Now they've been mixed and muddled, and you don't get original barrels. See, back in the day, you could just buy a kit, and you basically just be three parts. You get the whole front end, usually cut somewhere in the magwell area, so the barrel was still in the front stub. You get the complete lower, and then you basically just get a center chunk that had all the little pieces like bolt hold open, mag catch in it, and then of course you'd have the bolt carrier. They weren't. They were a unit, and you could tell really quick that they came from the same gun. Nowadays, yeah, I don't know, and that's kind of my problem too. Is my FAL standards are pretty damn high. If I build the gun, I want it to be correct. If not matching numbers, at least parts from all the same nation. I don't really have any interest in doing a mutt. Hey, thanks, Ben Cotton. Appreciate that. Did you have a question? Again, TTS. Not seeing a question, Ben, but if you have one, layer on me. Otherwise, greatly appreciate it, my friend. Ooh, Mitchell, yeah. HKG3 builds, be more wary of. Here's the thing. An FAL is on a forged or cast receiver. Anyway, it's a block. The barrel screws in. The headspace is set by a locking shoulder. If you get a bad FAL, you can almost fix it. I mean, you can almost always fix it. If the headspace is off, well, replace the locking shoulder. If the barrel was screwed in wrong, just take it out and put it in right, or put another barrel in. All you need is a big wrench and some elbow grease. It's pretty easy to fix an FAL, but an HK, there's welding involved and there's a stamped receiver involved. And man, if they're not done right, I'm not saying you can't fix them. Oh, and those locking rollers on the bolt. There's just sometimes with those HK builds, if they're done wrong, you're better off just making a parts gun because you go, well, this receiver was trashed, or they. One thing that Century did, they welded in the front trunnion with the barrel still installed. You're not supposed to do that. I don't know. And then Century was known to grind bolt rollers to fit. That's another thing. On an FAL, don't grind a locking shoulder to fit. Get the right locking shoulder. There's reasons for it, there's backs and forth. What I know is getting the right size shoulder does not cause problems. Getting the wrong size shoulder and trying to make it fit, it may not cause problems, but it may. I just don't want to risk it with freaking 308 going off near my face. That's a powerful round. And I don't want to blow my face up. By the way, I do actually have a friend who was a gunsmith. He actually built guns for me. He had a bad build that someone else did. He lost a good part of his hand from a gun blowing up. And I had a gun blow up, not because of the gun, but because of bad Tula ammo, 308 Tula ammo in my hands. Uh, So yeah, this is real stuff. B, it's up to honestly, it's what you want. I'm a classic guy, you can tell that. DSA makes some good modern parts, but honestly, and this is just my opinion, if you want a modern gun, I'd probably go AR-10. If you're gonna do an FAL, it's just hard to beat the classic wood and steel, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. It may just come down to what you can find, honestly. Yeah, my Springfield Matt, my Springfield, I found locally at a town called Alma years ago. I just had it, picked it up, and oh, it's been a gun ever since. I love heavy barrels. I've got it. I've got my Argentine. I've got my L2A1. By far, that's well. I say that the Argentine may be. I don't know. The Israeli is by far the most common, but it's also cool because they sell service, and it goes well with the light barrel. Uh, if you think that's a low number, Matt, to me the ATF let a high number of receivers in. There were the 1,836 G series. Then there were a couple of hundred sear cut Steyr imported receivers in the 70s, and then there were a couple of hundred more L1A1s in the 90s. It seems like the importers kept accidentally bringing in sear cut FAL receivers, and the ATF, or before that, the IRS, kept saying, well, okay. I have to wonder if even they were like, full auto 308. I don't know. But to me, that the FALs had a lot easier time of coming in and say like the HK G3 or SETME or any of those. I don't know what it is about the FAL. Maybe secretly deep down they really understand that it's not an auto sear, but a yes, an out of battery safety. I don't know. The FN49 has something kind of similar. Fun fact: Belgium and the Belgian Congo, for that matter, their FN49s were full auto. Yeah, why you would need a 30-06 full auto gun with a fixed 10 round mag? Shit, that makes the Russians' AVT 40 look reasonable. And that was not a reasonable gun. Oh, I can get you a G series tomorrow. Just got to pay for it. What's really funny is the G series go for so much, but then the other sear cut Steyr imports and the British L1A1s, yeah, they go for some money. Don't get me wrong; they're like 4,000 now, but freaking the G series are ridiculous, like 12, 15,000. And for I think it's just because they're well known. But to me, 1,800, that's a pretty high number. I mean, compared to a couple of hundred here, a couple of hundred there. Shoot, there are fewer pre-ban Argentine guns. Like 1,500 guns came in from Argentina. Like 1,300 FAL paratroopers came in from Belgium. So 1,800 is not a tiny number. I will also give a warning if you do find a G series, make sure its exact serial number is on the list because a few numbers have been reported that are outside of the list, and no one knows how those got into the US, but there's speculation they might have walked across the border from Canada or otherwise got kind of smuggled in. Don't pay G series money and then find out, oh crap, I don't have one of the grandfathered guns because you're getting screwed both ways instead of just one way. Oh, Jay, I get it. Shit, I'm blind and I have iron sights on all my guns. No, no. The whole idea of not having a backup sight because batteries die, especially if you live in a cold environment or a high altitude environment. It just happens. So, no, no, no. I think every gun needs backup sights. And I think everyone needs to train with them some. I get that red dots and modern optics, I'm not going to be a boomer and say, oh, no, just iron sights. But yeah, train with both, practice with both. Plus, you're shooting guns, and that's always enjoyable, right? Hey, Matt, I was just being silly earlier. No, we celebrate Christmas around here, but Festivus is a great Seinfeld reference because Seinfeld was pretty fun. I do have some Jewish friends, so there's Hanukkah too. I'm just gonna. Sorry, let me go back here. Montenegro, the Bundesheer was actually Austria. The Bundeswehr was Germany. I'm not trying to be pedantic. I just, information. That's all. Because, like you said, you're practicing your English. And what's funny is, the Bundesheer did use the FAL as the SCG 58. As to reunification, they looked at the HK33, or rather the G41, which was a custom that HK designed for them. Basically, it took AR-15 mags, had a few other updates, but it really wasn't what they wanted. I get it. They felt like they weren't really getting any improvement because they've been using the G3. I think their attitude was, well, shoot, if we're going to do the HK33 or the HK41, or I should say G41, we should stick with the G3 because aside from the caliber, it's essentially the same gun. Certainly, they weren't going to stick with the MPI 74. 545 was not popular in Europe. There was no way East Germany was going to keep it because that was seen as a tool of Soviet oppression. Right or wrong today, it doesn't matter. That's how it was viewed. That's why all these nations like Bulgaria and Poland immediately dumped 545 and went to 556 as quick as they could. So that was never going to happen. Honestly, I like the G36. Most Cummings are an exact result not of HK, but of the requirements and requests from the Bundeswehr and the German government, like the weight and the cost, because they did not have a lot of money post unification. So they had to have a rifle they could manage cheaply and effectively, and the G36 fit that bill. I've owned a HK G36 for years, and I love it. In fact, it's one of the guns that I sold when we moved back in 2014, 2015. I missed it so much, I just had to get another one, and it appears in a lot of videos. It's just a cool, weird. It almost reminds me if Glock were a rifle, it would be like the G36. So what that gun was originally intended for, a self-defense gun for Germany being used in Northern Europe, it's fine. It's just when they try to use it in hotter environments like Iraq, Afghanistan. But even then, you consider that Saudi Arabia adopted the G36 and Spain did too. They didn't seem to have huge troubles with it. Became more of a political thing by 2010 in fact of some of the reports that come out because you smell a bit of a political motivation of them. Jay, I couldn't really tell you on solar red dots. I do have them on some of my guns. In fact, I just put a Holosun solar powered on that Valter PDP. Did that video, put the threaded barrel on and whatnot. So, I wish I could help you more with sights, but honestly, my knowledge of any kind of a red dot is theoretical. B, let's see where the mag pouch should be a 4-pocket pouch for the mags, pretty loose weave, and it'll have a large pocket on the left side with a divider inside. K-Bar used to have them. You might check. They're out there. The oil bottle, I probably have spares of those. They weren't terribly specific. They were just kind of your polymer oil bottle. The egg beater flash hider, that I can't help you with. And I'll be honest, the last ones I had put up on Gunbroker, they went for, let's just say, more money than I expected. People really want those. Arsenal definitely should do another batch. The chat just, not you guys, but on my end, it just stalled out for a bit. So just 1 second while I find my place. I'm just gonna get up and get a drink of water soon. Sorry, guys, if my voice is giving out. I've been a little sick and Let's see, B. Ask talking about classic FALs. Yeah, the thing about a modern FAL look is you're gonna have to put the scope, the rail on the top cover. If you mount it correctly, some of the top mounts are fine, but then it complicates disassembly. And keep in mind too, your rear sights on your lower, your front sights on your upper. No matter what, that's never going to be a precision way of shooting. I don't know. And if you want to do a folding stock, that's complications in itself. A lot of times with guns, I just try to take them as it is. Matt, greatest threat to the Second Amendment has always been complacency. People are pretty good at looking at Democrats and the anti gun crowd, but they often turn a blind eye, pun intended, to Republicans and even gun makers. A lot of the stuff we've seen over the years comes out of left field, or rather right field, I should say. And I think it's not because they're one side. I think it's just that people let their guard down. And I think a lot of times too, people listen to the political rhetoric around election time and really buy more into that than they do actually looking at voting records and what people actually do after they get into office. You know, if someone says in November, doesn't matter. What's happening in January or February after they're sworn in? Being vigilant is important. And also, I will say, maybe not focusing so much on the federal level, but looking more at the state level. I've said for a while now, it almost seems like they've realized they're better off not doing anything federally, but letting each state do something. And that's where you've seen some crazy stuff. I mean, California, sure. Massachusetts, New York, sure. But look what's happened in Illinois. Look what's happened in Oregon, Washington, Colorado, even. Yeah, that's the area I'd be more vigilant, looking at more your state laws and what's going through. No worries, Montenegro. That's why I said I was just telling you in a very polite way, not at all criticizing, because absolutely any of us can make that mistake. El Gringo, I don't really know. I had to think more about that one other than off the top of my head. And I would say this, there's no perfect one size fits all rifle. Are you talking like close quarters battle? Are you talking more like over the beach operations, coming in and out of salt water? Are you talking like high up on the mountains shooting at long range, or out on safari type plains? Are you in the tundra? Are you maybe up in Alaska? Maybe we're fighting against the Chinese in Fallout. That's just it. I think the real trick is there is no one size fits all, and trying to do so, you end up getting a rifle that works but isn't really good at anything. So I'm a big proponent of having a few different guns. Now you don't want a military with 20 rifles. That's ridiculous. But maybe having 3 to 5 guns so your soldiers can have the best possible kit. So at the end of the day, my perfect rifle is the one that lets your guy come back home alive. Because that's oftentimes what a rifle is. Yeah, they're used for offensive purposes, but more often than not, they're used to defend someone's life. But to answer your question, it ain't the SIG M7. Promise you that. That thing's a fucking dumpster fire. B, I don't know. How about the? Let me see. Let me go back through that list again real quick. I know something that you didn't list. How about a drop case? There's some really cool drop cases out there, and I try to have a few of each, and there are some that are specific to Bulgaria/Russia. So yeah, maybe a drop case would be cool. / carry case. Yeah, I appreciate that, Jay. I sincerely do. I try to remind people of my limitations because sometimes they sincerely forget. Chris Bartacci was always bad about that. He used to say for years he'd ask me questions or get into things, then he had to stop himself. And I have to remind people because I want to be honest and I don't want to come across as a poser or someone an armchair person. Even though technically I am sitting in an armchair right now. Ducky, about a monolithic, you mean like having the thing? The thing is, the way the FAL was designed, the top cover really needs to be pulled off for disassembly. And I'm gonna be honest too, by the time rails were important, the FAL was essentially out of production. Think about it, most monolithic guns outside of the AR-10s we have today are not in 308. Yeah, the FAL was already winding down production by the 70s in most locations. And most nations quit making it in the 80s, early. For example, Australia quit in 1988. I think it was just something that came past its time. And by the time you made enough changes to make it work, it would have just been a different gun. I think people need to remember that designs have a shelf life. Again, Saif made that gun starting. Well, his first patents were in 1936, and his first prototypes were 1946, 1947. How do you make a gun that goes that far back? Yeah, I think it's asking a little much. I think the end result would be something like the FNC. That was much more like the SIG 550, but of course it was in 223 556. Yeah, Observer Fox really likes the Holosuns, and I've got a few. I put one on the what was it? I did. Oh, the Estonian, and then I ended up putting in another couple because they're kind of the new primary arms. They remind me of feeling that economy but high quality niche that primary arms once did when they came out. Oh, what I can say, and they do seem to hold up well. We haven't had any like fundamentally break on us. Matt, I'm gonna get up and answer your question while going to get a drink of water because my throat is getting dry. Can't imagine why. You guys get the type. I have to answer. The rarest FALs that can get. Hmm, there's a lot of guns that just came over as trials or prototypes. I wonder, are you talking military or civilian? If you're talking military, they didn't make many L2A1s and Canadian C2, C2A1s. They made like under 10,000 of the Aussies and under that the Canadians. They're pretty rare. Several nations just had trials guns or test guns. A few hundred of this, a few hundred of that. Yeah, I'm just thinking in my head. Of course, most of your military guns will at least be built in a few numbers. Cat, say hi to the people, Cat. Quit purring and say hi. Yeah, when you want them to talk, they don't. As far as the civilian guns, yeah, there's plenty of rare ones. A lot of them are Argentine, like the FN 5063 paratrooper. gets a lot of attention, but they brought over well over 1,000 of those. I don't have an exact number for how many Argentine paras came in. It was not very many because you just don't see them often at all. Maybe just 100 or two. Same goes for the Congo guns. I've seen one or two FN Congos or 18-inch fixed dot guns, and a few that came in from Argentina, and maybe slightly more that came in through Springfield, but not a lot. So they're pretty rare. The Argentine heavy barrel, sometimes I wonder more than just a test batch of those came in. I've seen two in my life. Not to say there aren't more out there, but yeah, those guns. Oh, and here's a weird one. Bello, Pedro Bello, he imported a few hundred FMAP guns, but he also brought in all of 10 FN Type 2 receiver guns. Browning brought a few of those in as well. So you do see a few Type 2 FN Herstal guns. So, yeah. That's why I said the G series, as much as you hear about them, 1,836 just doesn't sound very rare to me. I think they're just so high priced because of their very high profile court cases back in the 60s. FAL collecting can be a lot of fun, and price doesn't always equal rarity. And of course, there's the Poirier L1A1As. 158 of those came in, not counting receivers, of course, but I'm talking about complete rifles. I'm back to my seat now. Scott 79, I'm not sure that'd work. I mean, for one thing, gun makers or companies. What's the company's main thing? It's to make money. And I just don't see a company walking away from making money. I'm just being practical here. Yeah, I really just don't. Bill, yeah, the Colombian FN 49 is pretty scarce. In fact, I don't recall of any major import batch of the Colombian guns. Yes, there are some here. I've seen them. But yeah, you got one of the rarer ones. I'll be honest, I haven't really checked out the DSA baby poop gun now. They used to do them in the past, and they're pretty nice. But I'm with you. I'd like to get a an R1. I had so many chances in the past and just never did. But my standards, I'd want one completely correct. South African markings. I'd want the longer stock, the grenade plug, sight, and really, I really like to have the correct lightning cut receiver. It's not a make or break, but it would really put it over the top for me. And DSA did some R1 cut receivers years ago. Robert, yeah, I haven't looked in to see what's going up in Michigan either. I've been pretty busy with work. The last couple of weeks have been really hectic. I tried to take off a few days to go shooting with Fox, and oh my God, there was hell to pay with orders and people wanting stuff right before Christmas. And so I worked through the weekend to get everything shipped, and that was last week. And it was pretty tiring. Mitchell, I've heard that about those FEG kits. Were those the ones that FEG Defense was selling? Trying to remember. On a Negro, man, why would you want to? The milled Arsenal 545 is a very rare gun, and Arsenal, I wouldn't convert it. I'd leave it alone. If you're gonna do a 545 gun, let me ask you. You said you're in Brazil, so I'm not sure what's available down there. But AK 105 should be on the stamped receiver. Uh, yeah, if you had access to an Arsenal milled 545, I would definitely leave it alone. Observer, thanks for helping Jay out. Do I think the M7 will pass the practical trials? I don't think anyone wants the M7. Like an answer looking for a question. If you think about it, none of the ground pounders really want it. Would it be good for a certain task? Sure. We definitely have need for a more modern DMR. But beyond that, trying to make it into an everyday is way too complicated, way too fidgety, way too many parts, way too expensive. I could just see an 18-year-old soldier destroying the shit out of that thing. I also have reservations if SIG, Sauer, New Hampshire, could actually build hundreds of thousands of rifles and not let the QC slip. I don't see it going anywhere. If I'm wrong, and I'll admit that. But I think this will be one of those things that they'll buy a few thousand of, maybe 10 or 20,000, maybe even a little more. But they're going to say, okay, mission accomplished. And then they're going to basically just sit around and, I don't know. It doesn't seem useful, frankly. And of course, it's using a non NATO standard cartridge, magazine. Hey, thanks, Jay. No sweat. Look at Russia. They, for years, have always talked about the new version of this and the new version of that, that they're gonna field. And then you see what they put in Ukraine. Some AK-12s over there, but there's a lot of AK-74Ms, even a lot of old AK-74s, and even some old AKMs. For a nation that's talking about how much they're going to do, they're sure dipping into the old Soviet stockpiles. And you see this with a lot of their tanks and other equipment too. My takeaway is it sounds like a bunch of PR to me, frankly. It sounds like some propaganda. In Russia, even before the Soviets knew about some propaganda, she used it too. Simon, what's your M44 question? Observer, I don't know on 7 millimeter. I kind of feel like 308, 7.62, and 5.56 are nicely complementing rounds. I think if you try to go to 7 millimeter, what happens? I agree. I like, for example, I love Swedish 6.5. The problem is you do run into penetration issues, and not just for armor, but also going through like light foliage and stuff. On the other hand, 7 millimeter is a lot heavier, can't carry as much ammo, and a little OP for using, say, in a house if you're doing CQB work compared with 5.56. I just think there's no one size fits all cartridge. trying to go to one. Two, the infrastructure. You have all this ammunition, all these mags, all the training, all the optics calibrated for it. When you go to a new round, you have to replace everything. And you have to retrain not only your soldiers, but your unit armorers. It's a big undertaking. And if there's a big advantage to it, cool. But if there's not, in the end, for example, in the 1920s and 30s, there was serious talk about going away from 30-06 to 276 Pedersen, and it was objectively a better round in a lot of ways. But they ended up keeping 30-06 just because they had the infrastructure around it. So when the M1 Grand was adopted, it was in that instead of 276. Not a huge benefit. It's just hard to do. Now, that's not talking special forces. Special forces can have whatever they want. Montenegro, yes, I've eaten churros. Good night, Chris. Guess you're heading off. Oh, the most disappointing FAL. I'm thinking. I know this is going to sound strange, but kind of the FN guns. I worked my way up to them for years, ended up getting a couple, and then I realized really they were no better or worse than MBELs or FMAPs. And again, not to say they're bad, but everyone just talks up the original, and I'm very much an OEM manufacturer too. But I don't know. I just kind of felt like after getting a couple of the Belgian guns, and then when the price went crazy on them, I was happy to sell them and never really look back. The name on the side and guns were the same quality. Nice. I know that's kind of odd to say, but there it is. Just looking for my place again, guys. Yeah, I don't know. I did get some of the FEG AK 63F kits from Atlantic, but that was like a year ago. Yeah, Venezuela had an FAL. Oh, Gringo. Anything I help you with, let me know. I have to admit, on the M4, the M4A1's done a really good job of replacing it. I mean, M4A1 is kind of the final version. It's really got what's needed. It's got the rails. It's got the heavier barrel, ambi safety. I think it's not the best gun out there, but it's what we have. And I think we're going to get stuck with kind of a a good enough situation. Just don't know until technology really progresses what will be truly superior to it for a standard issue infantry rifle. Again, special forces, airborne, that's a different story. Trying to think, yeah, it's just hard to say. I There are definitely better guns out there, but are they better enough to warrant millions, even billions of dollars to switch? But I think the problem with the EM7 is it's too reliant and optic. I think a gun that can be fitted with a suppressor is great, but to think of a suppressor as a standard issue piece of kit, I mean, I don't think so. Could be wrong, but there it is. Plus, that optic is just really complicated. Is it full featured and advanced? Yeah, but it's just awfully complicated for your average soldier. Nucky, yeah, yeah, that's a .277. Uh, on the FN 49 chambering that was at least standard. They did some in like 6.5 Swede, but those are trials guns. There were only 4 production cartridges that FN did: 8 millimeter, 7 millimeter Mauser, 30-06, and 7.65 P3, often called Argentine, but it actually started off as a Belgian round with the 18 of those 7 millimeter. I think it's the softest shooting in that gun, the flattest shooting. 8 millimeter is a little bouncy out of it. Same with 30-06. 7.65 was an old cartridge. It was just mostly bought by Argentina because that's what they were using. It's kind of more of a needs must. Of course, Argentina did a 7.62 NATO conversion for the Navy. FN had trialed them out, but never put them into production for a contract. And the way that Argentina did it was different. That's cool and all, but at that point, they were just basically using up their existing guns. So yeah, I'm gonna say 7x57 Mauser is overall the best cartridge out of that. Plus, the Venezuelan guns become standard with a muzzle brake. Yep, you're right. The 30-06 thing was definitely during the Great Depression. On the other hand, it didn't stop them from switching over from a bolt action to a self-loading rifle, which was a pretty forward-thinking concept in 1936. And also, I'll remind you, in 2023, well, I wouldn't say we're in a Great Depression. We're not exactly doing super fantastic great in our own economy today. I'm unfortunately observer. I know nothing about 6 millimeter arc. Just I just don't. Gringo on the FN IWS. I really don't have any thoughts either. Again, if I can't get hands on a gun, it's hard for me to really think much about it. And the only thing that really helps with like the M7 is the fact that we do have the spears out there, and then I can extrapolate from that. Plus, I kind of know say, but yeah, the IWS, I just don't really have anything I can tell you about it. Yay, Costco. What I want to go to is S Smart. Just resetting the chat thing. And again, if someone wants to toss in a buck or two, always appreciated. Help me pay for my throat. One sec while I get my place again. Yeah, once it gets so long, it kind of quits auto scrolling for me. No big deal though. According to Arsenal's marketing on those cases, they're a game changer. I don't know. They're cases. I mean, yeah, they've tried to sell them to me. They're cases. I don't know. Mm. Yeah, using a submachine gun when an assault rifle is called for is definitely not what you want to do. No, no, that's it's not right, and I don't see the U.S. ever doing that. Robert, the VZ-58 doesn't get much love. Are you kidding me? I mean, yeah, I haven't done any recent videos on it because there hasn't been much new to talk about. But I'll just say this: go to our channel and go to the search and type in VZ-58. I think that should be enough said. Matt, if I could share one thought with a new firearms person, I would say get what's available now that still interests you. Of course, don't buy something that doesn't interest you. But don't get hung up on trying to get the expensive stuff. Like for example, on AKs, don't get it in your head that I'm into AKs and I've got to have a Chinese Polytech Legend. Nah, get what's available now. Get a Zastava or get a WBP or an FB Radom or even a Wasser, whatever. Start off with what's available now because that means you're not going to overprice. Second to that, I would say, and this relates, buy new most of the time because the gun will be new. It is what it is. It's got a warranty. Buying used is fine, but if you're new to guns, you may not know what to look for. So you might get hosed, if that makes sense. Like if I'm buying a used AK, I know where to check. I'll check the gas cylinder for corrosion. I'll check this and that. And I'll know if a part's been swapped out. Someone new to guns isn't going to know that from a hill of beans. See, more than a few will get burned buying used, not realizing that they bought a lemon, whereas an experienced person wouldn't. But if you buy a Zastava or a WBP new, yeah, you know what you're going to get. And if something happens to be wrong, you got your warranty. Worry about the Polytech Legends and all that stuff later. Because frankly, those are already expensive. They're not going to be too much more expensive in a few years. A WBP or a Zastava might be. Who knows? Ludra 700. Uh, is Beretta still importing the PMX? Because to the best of my knowledge, there's that one batch that we got in the summer, and that's all I've seen. Has another batch recently hit? It seems like to me, with the whole arm brace shenanigans, that Beretta lost interest in that real quick. Um, Unless something's changed in the last month or two, I don't know if they're going to do any more. Yeah, it's kind of sad, but I really like the gun. But it is a niche gun. A lot of people want to label it as a modern Tech 9. Okay, and Tech 9s are popular. People pay $1,000 for a 80s used Tech 9. So to me, paying 1,300 for a brand new Italian made version doesn't sound that horrible. Lucky duck, I think you might be right. You're absolutely right about the VA though. As sad as that is. Thanks very much, Robert. I do appreciate that, Robert. Yeah, because it is time. There's other things I could be doing, but I wanted to be here with you guys. And like I said, the previous live stream got all goofed up because of my internet cutting out, and I felt kind of bad about that. The stray bog was, well, early on they had some issues. They even had that kind of recall thing, and they're not from a major factory. They're not really from a military contract of note. It just kind of suffers from that other thing. Is why no more coming in. I don't know. Maybe they just weren't marketable. Maybe it wasn't successful, or maybe just the destabilization of Eastern Europe. Oh, lucky you're in Canada. I didn't even know that. I appreciate the donation. Yeah, because it comes up as Canada. Keep in mind, I can't see the little. I think someone said there's like little flags by people's names. Yeah, I can't see those, so I didn't know. If you want to send me like some C1A1 parts, I'll meet you at the border somewhere. You can just throw them over the border. You can give me some Tim Hortons too while you're at it. Dean? B, you can definitely get the Arsenal cases. Just understand they're cases that Arsenal USA is doing for the civilian market. They're not really a military case as such. Now, are they durable enough for military use? Maybe, but they're just doing them for here. I think most militaries, if they use a hard case, which most of them don't, but if they do, it's usually a Pelican. I know Switzerland uses Pelicans, but yeah, most of your militaries, if they have a case, it's going to be more of a soft case because it's just more practical. Unless they're dumping it out of a helicopter or something, then it's going to be a Pelican. I have no idea. On the sorry, Jay, on the STG 44. I don't know what we're getting, man. Keep in mind, HMG was teasing us for years. PSA says they're going to do a lot. To be fair, they do a lot, but also they don't do a lot. And I don't know what's going to happen there. That's such a major engineering project. We'll see. I mean, not saying we won't get one, but I certainly wouldn't be buying from the first batch. I bet there's a few tweaks they have to do once they get out in the field. Plus, PSA has a bit of a reputation for letting their customers do some beta testing for them, which, to be fair, a lot of companies do. Since it's not a military product, I mean, why not? After all, whenever anyone talks about Palmetto, they always talk about their great customer service. So they seem to lean on that. I do agree that the 760 by 39 MP44 is more practical. A lot of people wanted to do one in like 5.56 or something else or 9 millimeter, but in spirit, that cartridge is much closer to 8 by 33 curves than a lot of others. And Gringo, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the Army's going to do. It seems kind of funny that they're wanting to adopt a new gun right after we finally get out of war, after being in war for 2 decades. I just don't hear a lot of scuttlebutt about it. Plus, think about this. It's been a couple of years now since it was announced, and there aren't like thousands in hands. I mean, I don't expect the Army to re-equip immediately. This kind of thing takes time. Even seeing a few units switching over yet. I don't know. Look at the M17 pistol. They started fielding those really quick. Again, it took years to really switch over, and they're still switching over from the M9. But already by the end of 2017, the M17 was in the field. Now, again, that's a much smaller project than a whole new rifle. But you'd think in the last couple of years, ever since the M5, now M7 was announced, that there'd be at least some out there. Yeah, good night and appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. uh, Montenegro, I'm blind, so I haven't actually played any Fallout games, but I know about them. I mean, I was around computers and stuff and lived in dorms, and I have watched some Let's Plays and stuff on YouTube, and as friends were playing them, they'd talk about it and everything, so that's what I know about them. I will say this, in music, especially in the early ones, was really, I was going to say good, but that's not exactly the right word. It was very atmospheric, haunting, and fitting, especially when they first came out in the 90s before, you know, dystopian, gritty realism was all over movies and TV. It was kind of a change of pace because you looked around sci fi 97, 98. It was still pretty clean, pretty sterile, and that was just different. I'll take a tap 97. Midnight, just so you know, my speech reads your name as Midnight. Yes, I know it's night, but yeah, it doesn't get that. But I am actually glad to help. And yeah, the Jack should be a very solid gun. I've had mine since they first came out, and it's good. It's good. Robert, I'm with you on the old fashioned donut. I was just talking with the wife a few days ago. Sometimes I just want just like a good old fresh honey glazed donut. I mean, all the fillings and special toppings are fine, but man, there's just something about a really fresh honey glazed donut, especially with a good cup of coffee. Yeah, I know, Ducky. We're just teasing. I know the FAL is pretty well verboten up there. People down here sometimes forget that while Canada, at least up until like 2 years ago, could have some things America couldn't, like a lot of Chinese imports, things like the AK, the FAL, the AR were banned years ago. And yeah, handgun ownership is really tight up there. I've actually exported some guns to Canada, mostly rifles, but a couple of pistols, but they were older Japanese pistols to a collector up there. And so I got to go through the fun of exporting and importing, and it's a thing. But yeah, now you're right. Even the handgun situation's gotten rather silly. I would never insult Canada by saying it's basically just like America, USA, but let's be honest, we're pretty much like brother nations. I mean, like culturally, fundamentally, we're almost the same, and that's a compliment. Uh, yeah. Ducky, about PSA going with 300 blackout, I agree. It's pretty close in a lot of ways to 8 millimeter curves, but keep in mind that's an expensive bullet to buy down here. They're still basically $1 a round. I think they just wanted to go. I mean, if you're not honestly, if you're going to do that, you might as well just do it in 8 millimeter curves because they're not that much more expensive as a bullet. The idea of 760 by 39 is going to a very common cartridge, and that's along with 223, 5.56, and 9 millimeter, and about as common as it gets down here in the U.S. Stefan? Yeah, we talked. I mean, they asked me about the Russian cartridge. I mean, I have obviously no firsthand experience with it. To me, it sounds like Russian kind of PR propaganda stuff because China's got a new round. The U.S. has ostensibly adopted a new round. So, hey, Russia's doing that. Hey, me too. Kind of like how they've done the Sukhoi Issue 57 stealth fighter after the U.S. and China have theirs, even though Russia's like got 10 of them over a decade to even build those. In reality, when you look at Russia's battling within Ukraine, not only is it older AK 74Ms, shit, they're pulling out some old AKMs probably made in the 70s. So, how's a nation that can't even get enough current AK 12s and AK 74Ms going to go to a whole new cartridge? I mean, maybe the Spetsnaz will get it, sure, but outside of that, they better just not put it on ships because they keep losing their ships too. Dan, good mag for a Yugo M70. Really, any mag will work, but I'm a traditionalist, so if you can get the Yugoslavian, Serbian, Croatian, even bolt hold open mags, they sure look right in it, and they're built awfully tough. Yeah, midnight. Yeah, I know that they've talked about 300 blackout, but I think the 7.6239 is kind of the launch caliber. We'll see. I mean, that's kind of where my skepticism comes in. They promised a lot, different calibers, different stocks, different mountings for optics. Who's really going to buy this? Here's what I think is going to happen. People are going to bitch and moan about the price, and it's going to be the same crap. Well, if they'd price it for 1,500, I'd buy it. Yeah, well, it's priced at 2,200. I feel like that's the issue, and so if they don't sell, fantastic. I just don't see PSA maybe doing that they're going to do. Could be wrong. Who knows? But he also mentioned the steel case ammo. That to me sounds like a much better bet for PSA to put their money. That seems like a real money maker. The STG 44 doesn't really seem like a money maker. It seems more like a pet project. They probably bought the stuff from HMG on the cheap because HMG is incompetent. But how much money is it really going to cost them? How's it really going to pay off? Whereas making ammo, some people just want to buy a couple of guns. But ammo, you're going to need that forever. Sorry, guys, just finding my place again. I will say it looks like it's about 10:10 here. I hopped on right at 2 hours ago. Probably go for another 15, 20 minutes. Again, any FAL questions you got? Throw them in. Any last minute super chats? Always appreciate that. But I'm kind of just a little bit getting over being sick. So I don't want to wreck my voice too much. Been talking a lot today, but I also just hate to leave without saying anything. So wanted to give you guys about a 15, 20 minute warning. Yeah, I suppose 97 is kind of like a VZ58. I get that. I get that. I really wish there were more VZ58 variants. It is such a cool gun. Uh, if you made me sell the majority of my guns, a VZ58 would be one I'd hang on to. I want a Negro. That's cool. I appreciate the soundtrack talk. Yeah, ambient can be really cool. Good background noise. Again, since I'm using a text to speech, sometimes music that's overpowering with lyrics is hard for me to listen to while doing anything else because I can't hear my speech clearly. So sometimes kind of more chill ambient background music is hear my speech over. Not really familiar with the Splinter Cell soundtrack. Yeah, the PTR 44 was unfortunate. The gun was really beautifully made. It had a few issues, SSD, but I think a lot of it was the company in Germany was used to making blank firing guns. I think if they'd done another import batch, the problems were very easily fixed because one, the heat treat wasn't always great on the bolt group. Okay, fine, just change your heat treat. You know what's wrong, fix it. Two, some of the US parts that PTR used, like in the lower, weren't exactly perfect. They fixed that. But gotta remember, even back then in 2009, they were like a $4,500 gun at a time when Wassers were $350. They were always going to be expensive, German made, and the original design is not exactly. I mean, it is simple. But it's also not simple, and there's really no carryover. Like you can't use HK tooling or FAL tooling to make one. You gotta establish your own production line, and that's it. But it's a shame because the PTR 44 was a really good effort. Yeah, I have no idea what PTR 44s go for now. They dipped a little bit when HMG, excuse me, said they were going to do theirs, but then they went right back up. I can tell you that I bought mine when the price dipped. It was an estate sale, and I got it for 5 grand. Now that sounds high, but also that included like 10 mags and a good chunk of ammo and an original sling. You know, quite a bit of swag. And I sold just the gun with 1 mag. This was a few years ago for like 8 grand. It's just went for an auction. So I have no idea now. It's sad, but there's only like 150 in the U.S. Originally there were 200, but 50 of them either didn't work or had to be cannibalized for parts. Fallow is awesome. I've got the Argentine FALO. I've got the Israeli variant, and then of course I've got the L2A1. Heading off B? Yeah, I'm gonna head off pretty soon too. But like I said, a few more minutes. So any last minute questions? Really, midnight? On the DSA stuff, I'm not saying they're 100% perfect. That's for sure. But I will say that a lot of the negative stuff has been exaggerated online, and a lot of it seems to get repeated by people that don't even own one. You get into the whole, well, they don't make them like they used to. Okay, fair. Yeah, the original forged receiver guns with the LMT stuff, great. I'm sure we'd all still love to have them, but yeah, I'm not going to dog on someone who gets a modern ESA. They seem fine, perfectly fine. John, yeah, I do go into that in the video. The FN49, the FAL maybe don't look that similar externally, but they're pretty similar, especially looking at the gas system and the bolt. And ironically, the bolt carrier slash recoil mechanism isn't so much like the standard FAL, but it's actually like the paratrooper. So yeah, no, again, externally they look very different, and the magazine's totally different. Sights, front sight's very similar, the rear sight's not, but there's definitely a direct lineage there. Like there's no argument. Of course, they both came from Zive, and really the FN-49 was an interim gun. They they built it based on the pre-war technology plus the experimental guns that Zive built in England, Enfield. And I think it was mostly just to get some money flowing post-war for FN. Now, to be fair, they did arm the Belgian military in the Korean War to some extent, but it was really just a way to get some stuff going, get some practice, and then that let them really come out of the gate with the FNFAL is a pretty well formed machine. Yeah, that's kind of where you're at, Montenegro, is reproducing guns, even when it's possible. The prices, like to make a modern M1 Grand, yeah, you can do it because you do it cheaper than what a surplus Grand sells for, even at current surplus Grand prices. Because in America, the M1 Grand is 1,200 to 1,600 for just a more or less standard gun, depending on condition. That's a lot of money, but if you were to rebuild the gun to the original specs, same quality, especially if you had a machined receiver, not an investment cast receiver, it's going to be more than that. And the same goes for most. I mean, I can't even imagine what making a modern Luger. They're just so intricately fitted things. Luke G, which S3556? Help me out. Stefan, I don't think I have an FAL on Gunbroker, do I? Am I forgetting something? I mean, it's entirely possible. I could be definitely losing my mind. Luke, I guess I'm just drawing a blank. Sorry, I'm not sure. Yep, the SAR-1, just a good solid AK. That was really before Qger started just cranking them out. Nothing wrong with the Wasser, but I mean, all you have to do to an SAR-1 if you really want to put it to rights is weld up the bayonet lug and thread the barrel, and boom, you've got a really nice AKM, which is harder than you'd think. You think, oh, the AKM is the most common variant, but when you really look at our semi-autos, we don't have a lot of them. There's the Modis. There's the FEGs, if you want to count them as that, even though they're a slight variation. But most guns are based on something else. That's why the WBPs were so cool when they came out. They're much the first Polish AKM import we got. Okay, I love how your autocorrect just turned Kuger into Keurig. That is adorable. Okay, now I'm getting you more here. Yeah, you got me. There's so many guns. Honestly, you said 2000. I was thinking like FS 2000. What? I get you S3. Okay, SAR 3. Yeah, there you go. Got to remember shorthand doesn't. Uh, I don't know. 5.56 Romanian guns. Honestly, of the imports that we had back then, the 7.62 by 39, the 5.45 by 39, the 5.56 by 45 guns had the lower rep, but a lot of that had to do with their converted mags instead of just factory built, and that had to do with the assault weapons ban. Also, sometimes the US made hammers were weird. So my point is, if you get an actual Kuger mag for one and maybe replace the trigger group, they're good. They're just they were kind of left behind, and they were the ones built on more of a commercial gun than. Yeah, Stefan, I don't think I have any FALs up now. A few weeks ago, I had a DS Arms up, SA58 carbine that sold a while back, and then last week I did have an L1A1 slash R1A1 up, but that sold quite a few days back as well. So I don't think I have any up at the moment that in my mind. But again, I've been listing quite a few things and consignment guns and my guns, just trying to get kind of stuff up before Christmas. XX on a HK 93. It'd be cool if some of the MKEs would come back in. Fortunately, Vector's gone. I think you're going to have to kind of go with the Century C93. And to be fair, some of the Century C93s were perfectly fine. Just a little more problematic. Unfortunately, I can't give you more than that. The HK33 guns, the 5.56, were always kind of the redheaded stepchild. The G3s and the MP5s, HK94s, all that, just always get a lot more attention. Were adopted by a lot more nations. So there just weren't a ton of parts kits to build from and reason. And of course, they take their own mags that are pretty uncommon. Yeah, they kind of fall in between, unfortunately. So there just haven't been a ton of builders over the years. Yeah, look, sorry, I got you on the SAR3 now. Yeah, they came in about the same time, 99 through about 2004. Yeah, they were replaced by the Wasser 3. Although you never saw too many Wasser 3s. The thing about the SAR 3s, again, they were made and imported during the assault weapons ban, so they couldn't send over the standard 30 round mag with them because they were post 94. So, what they did to get around that, they took certified pre ban AK 74 mags and they put a new follower in them to try to make them 5.56. And they worked fine ish, kind of. They weren't perfect. The nice thing is that assault weapons ban went off at the end of 2004. So now we can just slap correct steel 5.56 mags in them. And that fixed a lot of the problems with them. But of course, in 2000, we didn't know that. We only had the mags they came with, and they sometimes jammed, and the other ones didn't. So we didn't know if it was the mag or the gun. Sure, Montenegro. I appreciate you tuning in. I always like it. It's always cool, like with you and Ducky and other to get some international because I really do like international guns too. And it's just I don't know. Said I worked as an English teacher, and I just enjoy talking to people from around the world. It's actually kind of what got me onto the internet back in the '90s because I talked to Australians and people from all over, and that was really cool to us back then, and it's still cool to me today. I understand. Like I said, I'm about to head out myself, so it's 10:30 here. Safe harbor. I really like the FAL, but I have to admit my favorite one just to shoot the BM59. It is so smooth and nice. Plus, every time I shoot it, I can't help but think this is what the M14 should have been. I really can't lie about that. Of course, I have my SAR1 Luke. I mean, we did that April Fool's video, which is a lot of fun. But nah, I don't. They're just not worth enough that it would be on there. I mean, if someone said, "Hey, here's 10 grand," but yeah, everything's got a price. But outside of that, nah, it's got way too much sentimental value, and it's a good, solid gun, and just got a lot of history with it. Oh, so yeah, that was just it was an okay L1A1. It was a Century gun on the receiver, but it was seemingly all correct parts. It had the right flash shutter. I think it had the original barrel, if memory serves, and it did have some really nice condition Marinil furniture on it. Really, outside of the receiver, it was pretty good to go. And even those receivers weren't horrible. I mean, are they as good as a DSA? No, but then again, a DSA inch pattern receiver would cost almost as much as that whole gun sold for. And those guns at least worked. If you hear my doorknob rattling, that's actually my cat Hobo. She almost can open a door with her hand or paw or whatever. Hobo, where are you at? Hobo, come here. She's yeah. All right, guys. Like I said, I'm gonna head off, but I'll give you a couple of last minutes. Again, any last minute super chats would be cool, and any last minute questions. If I can't answer them here, I will roll them into the FAL questions video. I've already recorded the full FAL 1A1 video that Patreons requested. So that's already done. I just need to edit it. But I didn't want the questions to get lost in the sauce. So do a separate, hopefully shorter video just answering everyone's direct questions. Because, we had some good ones tonight. And last time we had some good ones too. For example, like which is the best pair of rear sight, like the Holland style or the later style? So I don't know. I like hearing what people have to say because I want to be useful. And there's just not much out there on the FAL anymore. And a part of it is this is just where we're at. It's a pretty dead market. There's not really any new parts kits coming in. And the only maker of receivers in the US now is DSA. But one kind of follows the other. If no new parts kits are coming in, why would someone spend time and resources making more semi-auto receivers? But we had a good run of them on parts kits for a number of years. They actually started coming in before even I got into guns around 93, 94, and ran through a good, 2014, 2015. Harbor, again, I like Kalashnikov USA just fine. I've got the KR9, I've got the KR103 side folder, got the KR KP 104. They've all been 100% reliable, and what I really like about their centerfire guns, they don't seem overgassed. Like they shoot very smoothly. Would I take one over an original Sega? No. But if I'm being honest, that has less to do with how they are and more just to do with collectability. Here, Stefan. I appreciate it. And I'll do another live stream as soon as I can, but it might be a couple of weeks. It just kind of depends how busy I get. Reloading, what do you mean removing 870? So I'm not sure what you mean. Removing 870. Oh, okay. I mean, we've talked about it earlier. They're fine. I just personally am a Mossberg person, but I fully admit that's subjective. Kind of whichever fits you better. I just happen to like the Mossberg controls more. But, to each their own, frankly. Yeah, say Harbor, the BM-59 is just a really, really fun gun to shoot. Um, the FAL is probably objectively, well, I hate to say it's a better gun, but yeah, it's just really nice to shoot. Some out on the Polish M44. Oh, yeah, I don't think those have the escutcheons. I could go look at mine real quick. Grant, on the Century L1A1 receivers, the USA ones, I mean, they're not bad. They're not going to grenade on you, but they were cast. They can sometimes be difficult to build on just because of the specs. Can you find the DSA? I mean, that's just it. If you can find the DSA for a good price, but if all you can find is a Century, you should be able to make it work. They're not dangerous. Sure, Sean. Hey, Bad Habit Arms. Yep, Arkansas too. Northwest Arkansas to be specific. Oh no, someone. I mean, it's an FAL video, but I'm happy to answer any old questions. But best I remember on my Polish, it doesn't have the full escutcheons. The front will always have at least a partial liner. Even on the wartime guns, they have that. Otherwise, the wood's just way too thin. But I'm pretty sure the rear on mine doesn't have it. The thing that my problem is I own different M44s, so even though I'm picturing it in my head, I won't swear on a stack of Bibles that I'm not picturing like a Hungarian or something. But you guys go back and look at the videos too. The Century Import L1A1s, yeah, I'm not sure. Like I said, they do mostly seem to be BSA. They were definitely sold the LEOs, but they were just regular Title One guns, so that's why they were transferable. And they all had some wear and tear. But they all, okay, not all, but most are BSA British. A few Indian 1A1s came out of there, but what's strange is they're marked England on them. So okay. Hey, what? I'm gonna go look at that M44 for Simone, and then when I get back, I'm gonna close the stream. But I'll read any questions. So this is like the final thing for questions because he's kind of got me curious. I'm 99% sure I'm remembering right, but try to be straight with you. So let me walk in there and see, and I'll come back, read anything that's there, maybe a super chat or two just to close the night off on, and then yeah, we'll call it good. Probably until Christmas or after on live streams. I need to finish up a few videos for you, everyone. Said Fox and I did record a holiday video already. Where is the Polish? Is it my M40? You don't have as many as you probably think. Oh. Okay, looking at my M44. Yeah, the rear has no escutcheon at all. And the front just has the bottom liner. So you should have the bottom metal plate, and then the rear's empty. Now keep in mind, these are built out of really nice hardwood, whereas some of your Russian guns were laminate. Of course, Russian guns didn't have the rear escutcheon either all the time. Early ones did, late ones did, refurbished ones did, but quite a few wartime stocks absolutely didn't have the rear one. I've never seen a gun, at least that was official, that didn't have at least the front liner. And some of your older Mosins, the early ones would be screwed or riveted in, and then the later ones were press fit in. So it was one way they kept the escutcheons, but cheapened up manufacture a bit. Polish guns are pretty much make work anyway, which probably explains they're in fantastic shape. Returning to the room. See anything left, and then we'll call it a good one. Appreciate everyone hanging out tonight. I'll try to include most of the FAL questions in the video. Yeah, I was honestly hoping to show an Indian 1A1 in the FAL video. A friend recently picked one up local, but we just haven't had time to meet up and him lend it to me. But that just means since it won't be in the big video, it'll be in the in its own video. Sure, Aaron. I was hoping for a restful Christmas, if I'm being honest. It's kind of strange falling on a Monday. Sure, Simon, anytime. Like I said, my guns are pretty close by. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't giving you bad info. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I would have liked to put the Indian in a big video, but that's okay. Probably giving it its own video will make it more special. Yeah, Lithgow L1A1s, I mean, they're almost identical to an original pattern British. The British made some changes that the Australians didn't. For example, the switching over to the 3-slot hider, and of course, going over to the black Marinil furniture, whereas the Aussies didn't. Pretty commonality. The Canadians were a bit more of the oddballs in the group. Thank you, Stefan. I sincerely appreciate it. I know it's a thing, but it just makes one feel good. I mean, it's 2.5 hours of my life, so I don't know what I'm worth, but it's nice to be made to feel worth something. You know what that means. Oh yeah, Aaron, I did mention the bitch gun earlier, and I have an LSW, if you want to call it that, an LTA1 that's been in several old videos, and naturally it's in this one. And I like to do an F1. I'm sure you know that one. It's not a big difference, but going to the short style stock and that unique little flash hider, it gives it a different look. It almost makes it seem like a carbine. It'd have been kind of cool if they did like a 16 or 18-inch gun with that flash hider, the F1 flash hider. But no, I really like the Aussie guns. You know what it is too? The oil finish they use has that that unique smell. What's the name of that stuff? It's on the tip of my brain. Cerakote. That type of sealant they put on the Aussie wood just has a unique smell. I think so, Stefan. It says so earlier, like a couple of things up. I know what you mean though, because when I participate in live streams, sometimes the super chats on YouTube can be weird. Those L1A1s might have come from a third party state, but I will say they're marked England on the import mark. And typically the US is pretty darn strict at customs about marking them from the country they come out of. Maybe it was like they came out of a third party country, but they were handled through Britain. As I mentioned earlier in the video, like the G series FALs, those were actually done by Parker Hale in England, at least the conversion. So maybe something similar happened where they were, taken from Eastern Asia, sent to the UK, and then sent on to here. I don't know, but I do know my import mark says England on it. Oh yes, the Canuck strip, yeah, and that triple clip feed was actually an early feature that came from the Allied Rifle Commission. The idea was it was faster to either top off your mag or fill up your mag with clips than it was to totally replace mags. Keep in mind the FAL was a rock and lock mag. The problem, and the reason the British didn't ultimately adopt it, it was a huge spot for sand and debris to get in there. In Canada, I guess it just wasn't an issue. But keep in mind, the British were thinking to use their guns in like the Middle East and other arid environments because they still had colonies. In fact, the British tried out an early version of the L1A1 in 1956 in the Suez Crisis. Yeah, I mean, if you can get a Century or a DSA and the money's not different, even modern DSA, I would trust. There's nothing else they look better. Honestly, guys, DSAs, while they're maybe not perfect, maybe not as good as they once were 20 years ago, they're still good. I just haven't had troubles with them. And I have to think if you got a DSA receiver and you had problems, I just DSA would have to stand behind it. They're not a bad company. They're a small company, which has its own pitfalls. They don't have like a full dedicated customer service department. They're not Amazon. They're not just going to take shit back without anything. But the benefit of a smaller company is they do care. They just might be slow in getting back with you because they're usually out in the room, making guns. Ah, yeah. So cool. You do know the F1. I figured you would. Yeah, and that's a shame. We got some Lithgow guns in the 80s, both receivers and complete guns, but it was pretty small. I guess we can say the very final L1A1s that Lithgow built came over to the US by Joe Poirier. That would be in 1988, right as the F88 was ramping up production. Maybe. I think sometimes with those LEO imported L1A1s, they're kept intentionally vague. No one wants to really wave a flag in front of the ATF's face about them. I mean, they seem fine. If they were going to do anything about them, it's been 30 years. They would have. And if not, a lot of them would get mysteriously lost in boating accidents. But all in all, they're here. They're fine. I don't know. They're cool. I think it's neat because it's really the only service FAL that's civilian legal. Everything else has been modified to some extent. Argentina didn't have an SLR. Argentina made a metric gun, typically still having the full auto feature. But honestly, for the metrics, they're my favorite. They're really well done. And the United Kingdom L1A1s, like I said, they had a few changes that Australia didn't. Some good, some bad. Take it as you will. They're all pretty well equal, if I'm being honest. Yeah, talking about litho import, that whole F90 thing, man, that was a bummer. Don't get me wrong, I didn't think the F90 was going to be an earth-shaking change to to the market, but I would have bought one in a heartbeat. And the thing is, the ATF didn't kill it. It kind of concerned me. It never is good when a gun importer gets the cart before the horse. They were giving them to all the YouTubers, but if you notice, it was basically the same couple of guns getting passed from YouTube to YouTube, and almost all of them were full auto. I talked to one of the people that knew the importers, and they said they only had like two semi-auto guns. Everything else is full. It's like, hey, before you go showing these off, maybe import at least 50 or 100 just to kind of have them. So that did kind of bug me. Um, it's a shame, but I guess there's no reason they couldn't come in. Again, the ATF didn't block them as such. It's just things fell apart somewhere along the way. Aaron, can you own one at all there? I'm not up on 2023 Australian gun law. Yeah, Argentina, and they did the whole range of metrics. They did a couple of different paratroopers, and they're one of the few countries that actually manufactured the FALO. They called it the FAP, heavy barrel, basically just a direct copy of the Belgian. But yeah, not many countries did the heavy barrel FAL. Australia, sure. Canada, they're the only two that did the inch pattern, the imperial pattern. And then you have Argentina and Belgium and Brazil. I was trying to think. Yeah, I think Brazil made some heavy barrels. South Africa might have made a handful. Israel used the heavy barrel, but they all were based on Belgian made guns. Yeah, and talking about the F90, you know, I've done the videos on the Hellion. The first time I heard that we would be getting a semi-auto VHS, 2013. So it took 8 years for the VHS to be a reality here. So maybe one day someone will revive the F90. Maybe. Aaron, you very well could be right. Like I said, I know it wasn't something with our government. It has to have been either with the US company or the company in Australia or, yeah, the Australian government. People forget it's not just about what the US will allow to come in, it's about what foreign nations will allow to be exported. I mean, Aaron, we could probably like put some pests on your land if you needed us to, like put some eggs of something and let them hatch, and then you could become a professional. Okay, all I'm thinking about right now is Dale Gribble. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Basically, you have to be the Australian version of Dale Gribble to own a gun. Make of that as you will. 2.5 acres, 308. Sounds very American to us. You could just move here. I know, I'm just teasing. It's easier said than done, isn't it? Whatever logic there was to the full auto F90, it obviously didn't work for one reason or another. All right, guys. As fun as this has been, I always intend on being here an hour or two, and here we are, well over 2 hours. But my voice is giving out. I'm getting hungry. My laundry's done in the washer. I need to put it in the dryer. So, long story short, it's been fun, but better that I get back to my other stuff. I appreciate everyone who contributed questions. I sincerely appreciate everyone who super chatted, and I'll get the Patreon L1A1 FAL video up, and I'll do my best to get the questions video up. But if not, I'll do it right after the break. And yeah, I will do a video on the 1A1 ASAP after bumping into my friend. He's a local friend, but yeah, it's just time right now. It's just been so busy. Yeah, Aaron, I'm afraid too that they've kind of all those kind of I don't want to call them loopholes, but loopholes like straight pull, they've come and gone. They've kind of plugged those, haven't they? At least that's what I've heard. Hey, I appreciate you hanging out, Aaron. Check out our videos. Comment in the regular videos. I just dropped one tonight. It's on the. It's actually on a gun that you could probably own. It's on a Craig, an 1896 carbine, one of the old Rough Rider guns. Those are probably still legal in Australia. Oh, thanks, Aaron. I really appreciate it. It was worth hanging out. I guess calling you the Australian Dale Gribble worked. It's just late enough. My mind's starting to really wonder. I'm an old man. What do you expect? I appreciate it. Again, I hope you pop in. I've been trying to do live chats on Thursdays, but this Thursday I may have to be out of town, so I just wanted to do something tonight. Plus, I was having some mic issues earlier in the week. I wanted to make sure that they were worked out. But we do a lot of videos. I've done like Lithgow made infields, and of course, we do a lot of Commonwealth guns. I really like the Sterling, for example. It'd be cool one day to do in the own gun, the Australian submachine gun. Done some Sten guns, but haven't had an own yet. But yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm trying to keep making guns. Probably going to go on a little bit of a hiatus in January just to give time for new guns to build up. Plus, I've got a lot else going on in life, and it's good to just take a break and let new things build up. But we've got about 3 or 4 more videos recorded to round out December, so there'll still be new content at the end of this month. But January might be a little slow. But good time to kind of catch up on back catalog because we're coming up on 1,400 videos on the main channel and got another 1,000 or so on the Misha personal channel. Yep, the own is indeed. And what's really cool about the own is the story behind it. I love guns with a good story. Over here, you've got the 1941 Johnson. Yeah, no, good gun, but the story behind was much like the own gun. Just it's kind of cool to see national pride and just innovation. And it's also cool to look at like Australian aircraft manufacturing in World War II as well. Yes, the dark stream. Alrighty, folks. I'm gonna call this a night. And like I said, may not be on this Thursday. If not, I'll pop in when I can, and I'll try to give better warning. But you guys helped out. I will call away. There's a word. Call wait. Wow, wow. My cat just jumped up. Hello, Miss Peanut. See, if I did have the camera on, you could see Peanut, the three-legged happy cat. Alrighty, but we'll come back on soon. I appreciate the questions. I'll integrate them into the video, record that as quick as I can, and appreciate again all the super chats. And wishing everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Festivus for the Festivus, all that good stuff. And I guess winter solstice as well. So on behalf of us all here, at least me and Peanut right now, but the rest of the folks too, we'll catch you very soon next time. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.